I can take your daughter away from you. He said it like he was talking about the weather, calm, polite, almost bored. For a second, I couldn't breathe. He stood there in his expensive coat, shoes too clean for my dirt driveway, looking past me like my farm was already his, like everything was already his. You don't know me, I said. He smiled. I know enough. Single father, struggling farm, dead wife, 8-year-old daughter. You really want child services asking questions? My hands curled into fists. Behind me, I could feel her, Ava, standing on my porch, silent. He didn't look at her. He looked at me. She comes home with me, he continued, or I make one call and your little girl spends tonight somewhere else. He should not have said that. There are things you don't say to a father. You leave my daughter out of this, I told him. He tilted his head. Then give me what belongs to us. She doesn't belong to you. He laughed at that, and that was the moment I knew. This wasn't about love. This wasn't about concern. This was about ownership, and I was about to pick a fight with a man who thought people were property. The problem was, I had something to lose. My daughter. So when I said the next words, I knew there was no going back. She's not going anywhere. The smile left his face. You're choosing her, he said quietly, over your own child. No, I was choosing what my daughter would learn about me, and that terrified me more than anything, because what if I was wrong? 2 months earlier, I didn't even know Ava Langford existed. All I knew was that it was 4:30 in the morning, and my alarm was screaming like it always did. 5 years since Sarah died. 5 years of waking up in the dark. I reached out fast and shut it off before it could wake Maisie. The house was quiet. Too quiet. It had been that way since cancer took my wife and left me with a farm, a mortgage, and a little girl who still sometimes cried in her sleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling. Some days survival feels like enough. Some days it feels like drowning slowly. That morning felt like drowning. By 6, I was in the kitchen with coffee, staring at bills I couldn't ignore anymore. Property tax, tractor repair, feed costs rising. The farm had been in my family 3 generations. I was the one about to lose it. And then the phone rang. Too early. Nobody calls at 6 unless something is broken or someone is dead. Mercer. Mr. Mercer, this is Richard Lansing from Seattle. I have a financial proposal for you. Seattle, financial, proposal. Those 3 words never mean anything good for a Montana farmer. I'm not interested. $15,000. That made me pause. For what? Room, board, and employment for my client's daughter. 2 months. Rural environment. Character development. You want me to babysit a rich kid? Temporary relocation. I almost laughed. I run a farm, not a rehab center. He kept talking numbers. $15,000. That was the tractor, the taxes, Maisie's winter coat, breathing room, and for one dangerous second. I considered it. That scared me more than anything. No, I said, and I hung up. I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. Because 3 hours later, a black luxury sedan rolled up my dirt road. Behind it, a dark SUV, like a warning. I was halfway through replacing a fence post when I heard the engine. That sound doesn't belong on my land. I walked toward the house before the car even stopped. A man in a suit stepped out first. Then she did, and everything shifted. She didn't look spoiled. She looked braced, like someone waiting to be hit. Her hair was pulled back too tight, her jaw clenched, her eyes scanning exits. Not entitled. Cornered. I told you no, I said. The lawyer smiled like this was already handled. She needs discipline, hard work, distance from negative influences. Negative influences. She let out a small, humorless laugh. My family sent me here as punishment, she said. Not dramatic, not emotional, just tired, for refusing to marry the man they picked. That was the first honest thing anyone said. The lawyer tried to interrupt. She stepped forward. My father wants me gone until I'm desperate enough to say yes. There it was. Not rebellion. Control. I looked at her hands. They were shaking, not from cold, from fear. Get in the car, the lawyer snapped, and something in me snapped back. She's not going anywhere. I hadn't planned to say that, but I did, and when I turned to her and asked, "Do you want to stay?" Quote, ellipsis. She looked confused, like nobody had ever asked her that before. "Yes," she whispered. "The lawyer offered more money, threatened contracts, authority. I didn't care. I want it in writing," I said. "She can leave whenever she wants. Payment goes to her, not me." The lawyer looked annoyed. She looked stunned. And that was the first time she saw me not as a solution, but as an option. They left. She stayed. And that's how trouble moved into my cabin. The first night, she knocked on my back door. Soft. "I don't have food," she admitted. I made her mac and cheese. She ate like she hadn't in days. Later, I found out she hadn't. Control doesn't always look like chains. Sometimes it looks like limited access to your own money. The next morning, she was up before dawn. Jeans. Borrowed gloves. Too thin sweater. Determined. "I want to work," she said. "You don't have to prove anything." "I do." "No," I told her. "You don't." But she didn't believe that yet. It took a week before she collapsed in the field. Exhaustion, no sleep, running on fear. I carried her back to the cabin. She cried when she woke up. Not because she fainted. Because she thought she'd failed. That was the moment I realized something. She wasn't running from work. She was running from a cage. And cages leave marks. That's when I started getting scared. Not of her. Of who would come looking. Because men who believe they own women don't give up easily. And sure enough, they came, and when he stood on my driveway and threatened my daughter, that was the moment everything changed. So now the question wasn't, can I protect Ava? The question was, can I protect both of them? Because the kind of men who use power as a weapon, they don't miss. And I had just stepped directly into their line of fire. The first thing Ava said after he drove away was not about herself. It was about my daughter. "He'll do it," she whispered. "He'll try to take her." That's when I knew this wasn't over. That's when I knew I had miscalculated. Because I wasn't just fighting for a woman who wanted freedom. I was fighting a man who enjoyed leverage. And my child was leverage. That night, Maisie asked for pancakes. It wasn't Friday. I made them anyway. She sat at the table, swinging her legs, syrup on her cheek, talking about school like nothing in the world was wrong. Ava stood near the stove, quiet, watching, learning us. "Is she staying?" Maisie asked. Ava froze. "Yes," I said. "She's staying." Maisie smiled, like that settled everything. But Ava didn't smile. Later, after Maisie went to bed, Ava sat across from me at the kitchen table. "He's not bluffing," she said. "Graham doesn't bluff. Tell me exactly what he can do." She hesitated. Then she told me about Maya, 16 years old, best friend. Daughter of a business rival. A few arguments with Ava's father. A few closed-door meetings. 6 months later, Maya's family lost everything. Legal. Clean. Devastating. "Bankrupt," Ava said quietly. "My father doesn't shout, he restructures." That word sat heavy. Restructures. "He tried to have a widow declared incompetent once," she continued, "because she wouldn't sell him her company." My jaw tightened. "And Graham?" "He's worse. He enjoys it." Silence filled the kitchen. "You should send me back," she said finally. "No. You don't understand. They don't fight fair." "I don't either," I said. She looked up at that, and I meant it. The next morning I called Tom Brennan, small-town lawyer, sharp, stubborn. I told him everything. The contract, the threats, the name Langford. He went quiet. "That's big money, Caleb." "I know. You're sure she signed willingly?" "She did." "And you're sure you want to do this?" Quote, I looked out the window at the cabin, smoke curling from the chimney. "She's not property." "That's not what I asked." "No, it wasn't," he sighed. "I'll draft an independent employment agreement. Make it airtight. If they come after you, we want proof she's here by choice." "Do it." "And Caleb?" "Yeah." Quote, "If they escalate, they won't stop at you. I thought about Maisie, I know. 3 days later, the social pressure started. It didn't arrive in black cars. It arrived in whispers. At the feed store. At school pickup. Jenny Parker's mom stopped talking when I walked in. 2 farmers I'd known my whole life suddenly found something interesting to stare at on the shelves. It spreads fast in small towns. Single dad. Rich runaway. Cabin on the property. Stories write themselves. That night, Maisie sat cross-legged on the living room floor drawing. "Ava, come see!" she called. Ava came in from the kitchen. "What is it?" Quote. Maisie held up the drawing. 3 stick figures, 1 tall, 1 medium, 1 small, holding hands. "That's you," she said, pointing at Ava. Ava blinked. "And that's Daddy, and that's me." She paused. "And that's our farm." The drawing showed a lopsided square and a giant yellow sun. Ava's lips parted slightly. "You put me in the picture," she said softly. "You live here." Simple, obvious. Children don't overthink belonging. Adults do. Later that night, I found the drawing folded carefully on Ava's kitchen table in the cabin, like something fragile. A week passed. No cars, no lawsuits. Too quiet. I hated quiet, because quiet meant planning. Then Tom called. They filed. My stomach dropped. For what? Petition for conservatorship, claiming she's mentally incompetent. Ava was standing across the room when I said it out loud. The color drained from her face. "They're saying I'm not capable of making decisions." Tom continued on speaker. "They've attached psychiatric reports. Old ones. Vague wording, but enough to push a hearing." "Can they do that?" I asked. "They can try." Ava laughed once. Short, sharp. "They always try." I muted the phone. "Look at me," I told her. She didn't. "Ava." Finally, she met my eyes. "You are not broken. You don't know that." "I do. Caleb. I've watched you wake up before dawn. I've watched you learn everything from feeding cattle to fixing fences. I've watched you sit on the floor with my daughter and explain math homework like it's the most important thing in the world." Her breathing hitched. "That's not instability. That's survival," she whispered. "Same thing," I said. Tom cleared his throat through the phone. "Hearings in 3 weeks." 3 weeks, that was the clock now. 2 days later, the second blow landed. CPS, anonymous complaint, unsafe living conditions. "Are you kidding me?" I muttered. The social worker scheduled a visit. Routine, they said. Just procedure. Maisie overheard the word investigation. She climbed into my lap that night. Did I do something wrong? That nearly broke me. "No," I said firmly. "You didn't do anything wrong." "Then why are people asking about our house?" I looked at Ava. She looked like she'd swallowed glass. "Because sometimes grown-ups try to scare each other," I said carefully. "But you're not scared," Maisie said. I smiled. "Of course not." That was a lie. The social worker came on Thursday. Walked through every room. Checked the fridge. The bedrooms. The smoke detectors. Asked Maisie about her routine. Her friends. Her school. When she left, she pulled me aside. "Your daughter is safe," she said quietly, "but this complaint was strategic." I nodded. "I know." She hesitated. "Be careful." That night, Ava sat on the porch steps staring into the dark. "They're going to ruin you because of me." "They already tried." And we're still here." She shook her head. "You don't understand how relentless they are." "Maybe not," I admitted. "But I understand something else." "What?" "I understand what it looks like when someone teaches a child that powerful people always win." She was quiet. "I won't teach my daughter that lesson," I said. Silence stretched between us. Then she asked the question I knew was coming. "If it comes down to it, if you have to choose between protecting me and protecting her." I didn't let her finish. "I choose what's right." "That's not an answer." "It is." She stared at me. "You'd risk losing her." "I'd risk losing everything before I teach her that fear decides who we protect." Quote. Her eyes filled. "You're insane." "Probably." She gave a small, shaky laugh. Then she reached out and touched my hand, just for a second. Not romance. Not yet. Just solidarity. The night before the CPS report cleared, Maisie crawled into Ava's lap during movie night. "Are you my family?" she asked. Ava froze, then looked at me. I nodded slightly. "I hope so," Ava said gently. Maisie considered that. "Then don't leave." Simple, direct, unfair. Ava held her tighter. "I won't leave unless I choose to," she promised. And that was the moment I realized something dangerous. This wasn't temporary anymore. Not for Ava. Not for Maisie. Not for me. The fight wasn't just legal now, it was personal. And when you fight for something personal, you don't walk away clean. You either win or you lose everything. The hearing was 3 weeks away, and I had a feeling the man who threatened my daughter wasn't finished yet. The first article went live on a Tuesday morning. I saw it before Ava did. Small regional business column out of Seattle. Heiress reportedly manipulated by Montana farmer. Quote, "They didn't use my name. They didn't have to." Sources close to the Langford family expressed concern over their daughter's sudden attachment to an older single father struggling financially. Older, struggling. Attachment. I read it twice. Then I closed the laptop before Maisie could wander into the kitchen. When Ava came in, hair still damp from her shower, she knew something was wrong. What happened? I hesitated. She walked over and opened the screen herself. I watched her face change, not shock, recognition. "They're building a narrative," she said quietly. "What narrative?" "That I'm unstable and you're opportunistic." I felt heat climb up my neck. "They don't know me." "They don't need to," she replied. "They just need doubt." By noon, the story had been shared across 3 other outlets. By evening, it had reached our town. Small places don't need proof. They need gossip. At the hardware store, the cashier avoided eye contact. At school pickup, 2 mothers stopped mid-sentence when I walked up. Maisie didn't notice, thank God. But Ava did. She noticed everything. That night, she stood at the sink washing dishes that were already clean. "I should go," she said. I didn't turn around. "No. This is escalating. They're not just attacking me anymore. They're attacking you." They tried that already. "Caleb, I've finally faced her. You think I didn't know this would get ugly?" She swallowed. "They're saying you're manipulating me." "Are they?" Her head snapped up. "What? Are you here because I manipulated you?" "No." "Did I force you to stay?" Quote, "No." "Did I touch you before you chose to?" Her voice softened. "No." "Then let them talk." Her hands trembled slightly against the counter. "You don't understand how powerful reputation is in my world." "This isn't your world," I said gently. "This is mine. And in my world, you fight rumors with consistency. You show up, you work, you stay." 2 days later, Graham showed up again. No warning, no announcement. Just the sound of that engine on my driveway. This time he didn't smile. "You've made this messy," he said. "You're trespassing." Quote, "Technically, I'm concerned for Ava's well-being. She's fine. She looks tired. She's working. That's not what she's meant for." There it was, ownership again. "She's not a show horse," I said evenly. "She's wasted here. She's free here." He stepped closer. "You think this ends at a hearing?" I didn't answer. Conservatorship is one path. There are others. "Threats again?" He lowered his voice. "Business pressure, supply contracts, buyers backing out, loans reviewed." That hit. He saw it. "You're leveraged, Mercer. Farms like yours don't survive sudden instability. You've done your homework." "I always do." Behind me, I heard the screen door open. Ava stepped onto the porch, her spine straight, her eyes steady. "I'm not going with you," she said calmly. "You don't understand the consequences." "I understand them better than you think." He looked at her differently then, not affectionate, not concerned, evaluating. "You'll come back," he said quietly, "when this place collapses around him." He turned and left. No yelling, no scene, just quiet confidence. That scared me more. That night, Ava found me in the barn. "You believed him," she said softly. "I believed he's capable. He can't just make your farm fail." "He doesn't have to make it fail," I replied. "He just has to make it unstable. Feed supplier, loan officer, insurance inspection, small pressures, stacked." I leaned against the stall door. "You should know something." "What?" "I'm not protecting you because I feel sorry for you." She blinked. "I'm protecting you because you're right." Her breathing shifted. "You could lose everything." "I already did once." Sarah's name hung between us. "I survived that," I continued. "I can survive this." Her voice cracked slightly. "I want you surviving." "I want you safe." "Same thing." "No," she said. "Not for someone who's already buried the love of his life." That hit deeper than anything Graham said. Silence settled thick between us. Then she stepped closer. "If this gets worse, if it threatens Maisie directly, promise me you'll let me go." "No." "Caleb." "No." Quote, "You can't sacrifice her stability for me." "I'm not sacrificing anything." "You don't know that yet." She reached up and touched my arm. Gentle. Not dramatic. Just real. "I care about you," she whispered. There it was. Not love. Not yet. But close enough to burn. "I care about you too," I said. And that was more dangerous than any lawsuit. The next morning, the feed order was delayed. Shipping issue, they claimed. Coincidence? Maybe. Maybe not. 2 days later, my bank called to review loan conditions. Coincidence again. Patterns form fast when someone wealthy decides to press. I didn't tell Maisie. I didn't tell Ava either, not all of it. But she noticed. She always noticed. One evening, she spread paperwork across the kitchen table. "We diversify now," she said firmly. "Now?" "Yes. You're too dependent on cattle sales. If he squeezes that channel, you feel it immediately." I crossed my arms. "You're not here to save my farm. I'm here to build a future in it." She met my eyes. "Let me help." It wasn't charity. It wasn't ego. It was partnership, and that scared me too. Because partnership means roots. Roots means staying. Staying means loving. And loving means risking. 3 nights before the hearing, Maisie crawled into bed between us during a movie. She'd fallen asleep halfway through. Her small hand wrapped around Ava's finger without even waking. Ava went still, like she was afraid to breathe. I watched her, the way she looked at my daughter. Not possessive, not forced, just protective. The kind that grows slowly and quietly. After I carried Maisie upstairs, Ava stood at the bottom of the staircase. "I didn't know I could feel this," she admitted. "Feel what?" "Like I belong somewhere." I swallowed. "You do." She looked at me then, really looked. "If we lose on Monday, if the judge sides with them, we won't. You can't know that." "Then I'll fight again." She stepped closer. "Why?" The answer came before I filtered it. "Because I'm tired of good women being told they're crazy when they refuse to be owned." Her breath caught. And in that moment, something shifted. Not desperation, not dependency, choice. She leaned in slowly, gave me enough time to step back. I didn't. The kiss wasn't urgent. It wasn't reckless. It was steady, careful, like we were both signing something invisible. "When we pulled apart," she whispered, "this changes things." "I know." "It complicates the hearing." "I know." "Are you sure?" Quote, "No." But I didn't move away, and neither did she. The night before court, I didn't sleep. I lay in the dark listening to the house breathe. Listening to Maisie's soft snore down the hall. Listening to my own heartbeat like it was counting down. In the cabin, the light stayed on longer than usual. Ava. Probably not sleeping either. Tomorrow would decide if she stayed free. Tomorrow would decide if my daughter's life stayed untouched. Tomorrow would decide if standing up to power was bravery or stupidity, and I had no idea which one I'd chosen. The courtroom smelled like polished wood and old power. That's the only way I can describe it. Power. Not loud, not obvious, just sitting there in expensive suits and quiet confidence. Ava's hand was cold in mine. Not shaking, just cold. "Look at me," I said softly before we went in. She did. "No matter what happens in there, you chose this. You walked in free." Her throat moved as she swallowed. "I'm scared." "Good," I said. "Means you know it matters." The bailiff called our case. And just like that, we stepped into the fight. They went first, of course they did. 3 lawyers, 2 doctors, stacks of paperwork, language designed to sound reasonable, concerned family, erratic decisions, sudden personality changes, isolation from support systems. Isolation, like she hadn't been isolated her whole life. The psychiatrist testified that he had serious concerns. He hadn't seen her in 3 years, but he had concerns, based on family reports. Family, the same people trying to cage her. I watched Ava's jaw tighten. I squeezed her hand under the table. Not control, not direction, just contact. She didn't need saving. She needed steadiness. Then Graham took the stand. He wore humility like a costume. "I love her," he said. That almost made me laugh. "She's confused," he continued. "This isn't the Ava I know." "You mean the Ava who obeyed? The Ava who didn't say no? She's being influenced," he added, glancing at me. There it was. Influenced. Like she couldn't think. Like she couldn't choose. My turn would come. But not yet. First, Tom stood. And Tom dismantled them piece by piece. "Doctor," he asked calmly, "when was your last direct evaluation?" 3 years ago. "Have you personally observed Ms. Langford in the past 6 months?" Quote, "No." "So your testimony is based entirely on secondhand information from the petitioning family?" The doctor hesitated. "Yes." The courtroom shifted slightly. Small crack, but not enough. Then Tom did something I didn't expect. He called Rachel. She walked up steady, composed, and told her story. The charm, the control, the threats, the rumor campaigns, the attempt to have her declared unstable when she tried to leave. I watched Graham's face carefully. He didn't look surprised. He looked annoyed. Like she was inconvenient. That told me everything. Then Martha testified. Different case, same pattern. Conservatorship attempt when she refused to sell. Pattern. That word started circling the room like smoke. Pattern of control. Pattern of intimidation. Pattern of weaponizing mental health. And for the first time, I saw doubt flicker in the judge's eyes. Then Ava stood, and I swear to God, I have never been prouder of anyone in my life. She didn't cry, she didn't rage, she told the truth. "I was given a choice," she said evenly. "Marry a man I did not love or be removed until I complied." "Did Mr. Mercer coerce you?" one lawyer asked sharply. "No." "Did he pressure you to stay?" Quote, "No." "Did he benefit financially from your presence?" "No." Her voice didn't waver. "I asked to stay." She paused. And for the first time in my life, someone asked me what I wanted. Silence fell heavy, because that sentence carried weight. Then the question came. The one I knew was coming. "Have you developed romantic feelings for Mr. Mercer?" A murmur in the room. Ava didn't look at me. She looked at the judge. "Yes." "Could those feelings be clouding your judgment?" Quote, "No," she replied. "They developed because he respected my autonomy, not because he controlled it. Clean, direct. Truth has a different tone. You can hear it." Then it was my turn. I stood. I walked. I sat. And I kept my hands steady. "Mr. Mercer," their attorney began, "you are in financial distress, correct?" "I'm a farmer," I said. He didn't like that. "You accepted a significant sum for her stay." "I insisted the money go to her." Yet you admit romantic involvement. Yes. So it is possible you saw a future financial advantage. That's when I leaned forward. I buried my wife 5 years ago, I said quietly. The room stilled. I raised my daughter alone. I've worked this land since I could walk. If I wanted a shortcut, I would have taken one long before now. He tried another angle. You're in a position of authority over her. No, I replied calmly. She is an adult. We have a written contract. She can leave at any time. And yet she didn't. No, I said, she didn't. Because she chose not to. And that was the part they hated. Choice. The judge called recess. 45 minutes. 45 minutes of sitting in a hallway pretending not to think worst-case scenarios. Ava paced. Tom reviewed notes. I watched the door, like something might come through it. Caleb, Ava whispered. Yeah, if we lose. We're not losing. Stop doing that. Doing what? Pretending you're not scared. I exhaled. I am scared. Of what? I looked at her, teaching my daughter that money wins. She blinked. That landed. When we went back in, I knew before the judge spoke. Her tone had shifted. The petition for conservatorship is denied. For a second, no one moved. Then Ava exhaled like she'd been underwater. Denied. Not delayed, not reconsidered, denied. But the judge wasn't finished. I am ordering a formal investigation into Mr. Hartley's prior legal conduct. Now Graham stiffened. His father stood abruptly. Power hates exposure. The gavel fell. And just like that, it was over. Outside the courtroom, Ava didn't cry. Not immediately. She waited until we reached the parking lot. Then she collapsed into me. Not weak, just released. I'm free, she whispered. Yes. He can't force me. No. Her fingers gripped my jacket. I'm free. And that's when I realized something. Freedom looks different when you've never had it before. It looks like disbelief. Like someone expecting chains to snap back on. I held her tighter. They're not coming back, I said. But even as I said it, I knew something. Men like Graham don't lose quietly. And I had a feeling this wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Freedom is loud at first. Then it gets quiet. That's the part nobody tells you. The morning after the hearing, the sun rose the same way it always did. The cattle still needed feeding. The fence still needed fixing. The bills were still stacked on the kitchen table. But something had shifted. Ava walked into the kitchen barefoot, hair loose. And for the first time, she didn't look like she was bracing for impact. She looked settled. Good morning, she said softly. Good morning, I replied. We stood there a second longer than necessary. No court, no lawyers, no threats, just us. It felt strange, like the air after a storm. Maisie came running in 5 minutes later. Did you win? She asked. I blinked. How did you? I heard Mrs. Patterson talking yesterday, she said proudly. She said Daddy was fighting rich people. Ava crouched in front of her. We won, she said gently. Maisie's whole face lit up. So you can stay forever? Ava looked at me. I nodded. If your dad will have me, she teased. Maisie gasped, like that was the easiest decision in the world. Of course he will. Simple, decided. Children don't complicate love. Adults do. For 2 weeks, nothing happened. No new articles. No cars on the driveway. No legal notices. The quiet felt almost suspicious. Then Tom called. They're investigating Graham formally, he said. For what? Fraud, coercion, pattern of abuse of conservatorship filings. I leaned back in my chair. Real consequences. Real consequences. I found Ava in the barn. She was brushing down one of the horses, movements slow and steady. He's under investigation, I told her. She didn't react immediately. Then her shoulders dropped. Good, she said. Not vindictive, not triumphant, just relieved. He won't do this to someone else, she added quietly. That's when I realized something else. She wasn't just fighting for herself. She was closing a door behind her so no one else would get trapped. But freedom has another side. Choice. And choice is terrifying when you've never had it. One night, after Maisie was asleep, Ava sat across from me at the kitchen table. "What now?" she asked. "What do you mean?" "I'm not hiding anymore. I'm not waiting out a contract. I'm not fighting a case." She folded her hands together. "I get to choose." "And?" "And I choose you." The words landed heavy, real. "I choose Maisie. I choose this farm. I choose mornings that start before sunrise and end exhausted but honest." Her voice softened. "But I don't want to be your guest." "You're not. I don't want to be your project either." "You never were." She held my eyes. "I want to be your partner." There it was. Not romance, not rescue, partnership. "Okay," I said quietly. She exhaled. "Okay?" "Yeah." "You're not even going to argue?" "No," I said. "I've learned arguing with you is pointless." She laughed. And that sound did something to me. Over the next few days, she spread paperwork across the table. Actual numbers, actual projections. "You're too dependent on cattle," she explained. "Margins are tight. We diversify." "With what?" "Egg production expansion first, then direct-to-market sales, then—" She hesitated. "Then what?" She smiled slightly. "The old barn." "What about it?" Quote, "Cafe." I stared at her. "A farm cafe?" "Yes." She leaned forward, energized. "Farm to table, breakfast and lunch. We use our eggs, partner with local growers, create a destination." "That's a risk." "So was letting me stay." "Fair point." She slid a sheet toward me. "I've run projections. If we renovate gradually and keep overhead low, it stabilizes income streams." "You really thought this through." "I've had time," she said softly. "Time I didn't have before." That hit deeper than the business plan. She wasn't just building a cafe. She was building a future she controlled. "With one condition," I said. "What?" "You're equal owner." She blinked. "Caleb." "Equal." "I don't need." "Yes, you do, and so do I." Silence. Then she nodded. "Equal." That word felt bigger than marriage. A month later, the first chicks arrived in a cardboard box. Maisie named every single one. "This one's Sunshine. This one's Pepper. This one's Queen Fluffy." Ava knelt beside her, laughing. "Queen Fluffy?" "She's confident," Maisie said seriously. Ava looked at me over our daughter's head. "See? Strong leadership." That word, our, it slipped in quietly, but it stuck. Then came the night everything changed again. We were sitting on the porch after dinner. Maisie was chasing lightning bugs in the yard. Ava's head rested lightly against my shoulder. Comfortable. Natural. "I need to ask you something," she said. "Okay. Do you still feel like you're protecting me?" I thought about it. "No." She lifted her head. "What do you feel?" "Like we're building something." She watched me carefully. "And if I wasn't here?" Quote, "I'd still be building," I said honestly, "but it wouldn't feel the same." Her voice dropped. "I don't want to be temporary." "You're not. You can't promise that." "I can promise this," I said. "I'm not loving you because you need help." Her breath caught. "I'm loving you because you stand beside me." That was the first time I said it plainly. Loving you. Not might, not maybe. She didn't cry. She didn't look shocked. She just leaned in and kissed me slowly. Not desperate, not rushed, certain. The cafe renovation started in early summer. Dust, hammering, long days. Maisie insisted on painting part of the wall bright yellow. "For happy chickens," she explained. Ava let her. Because that's what partnership looks like. Listening to small voices. One afternoon, I found Ava alone in the barn. She was holding Maisie's drawing from weeks ago. The 3 stick figures. "You kept it," I said. "Of course." She traced the smallest figure gently. She put me in her picture before I believed I belonged. She looked at me then. Do you believe it now? Yes. No hesitation. Yes. That's when I knew something solid had formed, not out of fear, not out of crisis, out of choice. 3 months after the hearing, Tom called again. Graham's being charged, he said. Officially? Officially. Fraud, coercion, falsified documentation, pattern proven, consequences real. I hung up and found Ava in the kitchen. It's happening, I said. She went still. Then she sat down slowly. He won't do this again. No. She closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them, something had shifted. Closure. That's what it looked like. That night, after Maisie fell asleep on the couch between us, Ava whispered something I didn't expect. I don't feel like I'm running anymore. You're not. I feel like I'm home. The word hit harder than any court ruling. Home, not Seattle, not marble floors, not boardrooms. A farmhouse with peeling paint and too many repairs. You are, I said. And for the first time since that black sedan rolled up my driveway, I wasn't afraid of what would come next. Because this wasn't about surviving anymore, it was about building. And building is always louder than fear. The first time she called it our farm. I didn't correct her. We were standing in the old barn, sunlight cutting through broken boards, dust floating in the air like something sacred. Our cafe will fit right here, she said, pointing to the far wall. Kitchen there, windows here, and a big one facing the chicken run so kids can see where their food comes from. Our, not yours, not mine, ours. 6 months ago, she stepped onto my land shaking. Now she was planting roots. That's when I knew this wasn't temporary, this wasn't crisis bonding, this was choice. And choice is stronger than fear. The renovation nearly killed us. Long days, splinters, arguments over budgets. Maisie insisting the wall had to stay yellow because happy chickens make happy eggs. Ava let her win that one. I watched them paint together. Both with streaks of yellow on their cheeks, both laughing, and something hit me hard in the chest. Not excitement, not pride, gratitude, the kind that almost hurts. Because I had almost said no that day. I had almost sent her back. The cafe opened on a cold September morning, 22 seats, simple menu, eggs, biscuits, coffee strong enough to wake the dead. We called it Harvest Home because that's what it became. The town showed up cautiously at first, then steadily. Farmers, teachers, retirees, mothers who once whispered now asking for second helpings. Consistency beats gossip, always. Maisie stood at the counter on opening day and declared, "This is where good things happen." People laughed, but she wasn't wrong. 3 weeks after opening, the letter came. From Charles Langford. Ava stared at it for a long time before opening it. Inside was a check, the exact amount he'd offered me to take her, plus interest. And one line, "I hope you found what you were looking for." No apology, no admission, just distance. "What are you going to do?" I asked. She looked at the check, then at Maisie through the cafe window, helping a customer carry a muffin. "I'm going to put it in her college fund," she said, just like that. Not revenge, not pride. Investment. Forward. That's when I realized she wasn't trying to win against her father anymore. She was building something he couldn't understand. Winter came early that year. Snow piled high against the barn. The cafe heaters worked overtime. And one night, after closing, we sat alone at a corner table. Maisie asleep upstairs in the farmhouse. Just us. "You know," she said softly, "I used to think freedom meant running. What does it mean now? Staying." I leaned back in my chair. "You sure about that?" She reached across the table and took my hand. "I've never been more sure of anything." Silence settled between us. Not awkward. Not heavy. Full. That's when I did it. I pulled the small velvet box from my coat pocket. Her breath caught instantly. "Caleb, I'm not asking because you need saving. I know. I'm not asking because Maisie wants it. I know. I'm asking because I choose you." I stood, walked around the table, knelt on one knee on that old wooden floor we'd refinished ourselves. You walked onto my land terrified, I said. And you stayed brave. You fought for yourself. You fought for my daughter. You built something with me instead of hiding behind me. I opened the box. Simple ring, nothing flashy, solid. Will you marry me? Her hands covered her mouth. Tears came fast. Yes, she whispered, then louder. Yes. When I slipped the ring onto her finger, she didn't look like someone rescued. She looked like someone who had chosen. That mattered. We told Maisie the next morning over pancakes. Chocolate chip. Because that's how you tell important news. She's going to be my mom? Maisie asked carefully. Ava knelt down in front of her. I'm going to love you whether you call me that or not. Maisie studied her for a second, then hugged her tight. Okay, but I'm still keeping my room the same. We both laughed. Deal. The wedding was small. Spring. Right in the field where she collapsed the first week she was here. The same place she once tried to prove she could survive. Now she stood there in a simple white dress. Strong. Certain. Free. Maisie walked her down the aisle. Because that's what she insisted on. She picked us. Maisie told everyone seriously. And she was right. Ava picked us. I picked her. That's how this worked. Choice. Not obligation. Not control. Choice. When the minister asked for vows, I didn't use anything fancy. Ava, I said, I promise to never silence your voice. I promise to never confuse love with ownership. I promise that whatever we build it equal. Her eyes filled. When it was her turn, she looked at me and said something I'll never forget. I promise to stay, not because I have to, because I want to. There are vows, and then there are truths. That was truth. Now, a year later, I sometimes stand at the cafe window before sunrise. Watch her inside, setting up tables. Watch Maisie carrying napkins too big for her hands. Watch this life we built from defiance, from risk, from a single word. No, no, she's not going back. No, you don't own her. No, fear doesn't get to decide. That's what started all of this. Sometimes people ask me if I regret it. If I regret taking on powerful enemies. If I regret risking the farm. If I regret choosing her. I tell them this. Some promises don't come with paperwork. Some families don't start with blood. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is refuse to send someone back to a cage. He threatened to take my daughter once, said I was choosing the wrong fight. He was wrong. I chose the right one. And I'd choose it again. Every single time.